Hey guys, this is Stephen Underwood, the founder and CEO of Veterans in Victory Incorporated, and this is our inaugural episode of our Veterans in Victory Incorporated podcast and YouTube channel. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce who we are and how we came to be. We are focusing on three issues that veterans often face, which is PTSD, homelessness, and substance abuse. We are a 501c3 approved nonprofit organization, and we are already starting to receive several donations, both monetarily and also of supplies that we can use, and we have used already to be put to good use for homeless veterans and those needing treatment and other, um, typical everyday life necessities. And so, just wanted to take this opportunity again and tell you guys a little bit about who we are and also this podcast. Honestly, it's not going to be just a veteran or military type podcast, but I want to Theo Von this. I really enjoy his podcast and watching his videos, and he is all over the place. He makes it fun and lighthearted. And we want to try to do that while also maintaining the seriousness of being able to raise awareness for the issues of veterans today. I was reading a study not too long ago that nearly 97% of military veterans from the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts have some form of PTSD, some level of PTSD, and that's kind of surprising. I would think that it would be a lot more for veterans of the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and so forth. But it was very staggering to me to read that 97% of veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan have some form of PTSD. And so that is one of the focuses that we have in helping veterans. And we want to help any veteran that's out there struggling with different things. If we can be of assistance to you, then we certainly will. If there's a resource that we can point you to, then we want to do that. We want to be an intermediate between you and folks that can help you. We want to be that liaison and make ourselves available just to let you know that you're not fighting this battle alone. And so, as a matter of fact, our motto is we want to fight for those who have fought for us. Um, it was April 30th of this year, 2024, that a good friend of mine, Caleb Massey, who served with me in 1st Platoon, Company H, 121st Long Range Surveillance during Operation Iraqi Freedom from June of '06 to September of '07. On April 30th of this year, Caleb took his own life after dealing with several years of post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD for short. And one of the things that really hit home during his funeral, uh, let me backtrack a little bit. I wasn't even really planning on going because Caleb was one of my best friends during Iraq. He helped me get through a lot of those tough times just because of his sense of humor and being able to make light of a tough situation. And even when you wanted to clam up, be depressed, or cry, even then Caleb was always there to make you laugh, and it didn't really matter what was going on. And so he was one of my best friends, and I even for a while copied some of his mannerisms because I thought so highly of him. And it was said at his funeral by one of the gentlemen speaking that Caleb had such a focus on others that he seemed to ignore his own problems. He seemed to ignore his own issues. And they shared the story of him being in Augusta, Georgia at one point, and he saw a homeless person and didn't take any consideration for any of the legal ramifications, title transfer, insurance, or anything like that. But Caleb was this sort of selfless individual that he saw a need. He had an opportunity to help meet it, and so he turns around and he gives the guy the keys to his car and says, "Here, you can have my car." And as I heard that, I'll be honest with you, tears rolling down my face the entire time, just trying to hold it together uh, not ever having met his family in person, but hurting for them. I could see them sitting on the front row. I was very fortunate to be sitting with several other men from our platoon that were in attendance, and it was very helpful that they were there showing their love and support for our brother that had just succumbed to his own struggles. But we were sitting there listening to this, and something in me just clicked. It was like, okay, you have an opportunity here to continue his legacy. You have an opportunity here to honor his memory. And you can put your skills and experience in the nonprofit sector, in a ministry aspect. Um, for the last decade, serving as a foreign missionary overseas, and also having had the privilege to work for a company that did the legal documents for nonprofits, putting that set of skills to use to be able to create Veterans in Victory Incorporated. And so now we're a little over 2 months in, and we've already seen just an abundance of support and love shown toward us. As a matter of fact, we have several different projects that are underway right now. We've attended two different events for fundraising, and looking forward to many more to come. Out of both of those events, we've been invited to other events to present our goal and our nonprofit and just put our name out there to the public. One of the great things about being in sales, as I am, I have learned how to network and connect with others that can help us to advance. And so, even at those events, utilizing that time and experience to network with other nonprofits and other organizations that can help us to advance and move forward has been just a tremendous blessing in itself. Even if we didn't receive a single dollar to help raise funds for veterans and supplies that we need, the connections that we've made to be able to point them in the right direction has been incredible. As a matter of fact, just today, I was driving down the road heading back to the office, and I came across this organization here, and they help homeless. They have an outreach for them. And then on their wall, they have this piece of paper for the Chattanooga area. And it's just a list of phone numbers and connections that a homeless person might need to reach out to if they need assistance. And so there are resources available. The problem is that not a lot of people know about them because they hadn't taken the time to research it. Well, if we can do the groundwork for them and point them in the right direction, help them to get the help that they need, then that's doing exactly what Caleb did this whole time, serving them the best way that he knew how, and that's what we want to do as well. And so I'm very excited to present to you Veterans in Victory Incorporated. We are fighting for those who have fought for us. Our entire board is made up of those first platoon soldiers that served together in Iraq. Our former platoon sergeant, who retired as a command sergeant major, two other team leaders that also retired as command sergeant majors, and another good friend of mine who was an assistant team leader that ETS, I believe, as a staff sergeant. And so, honestly, I was the lowest ranking one in the entire group when I ETS'd. And so it's kind of funny that I'm the CEO of this group, but I'm thankful to have a support system in those men and their wisdom to be able to lean to when I need advice and help. And they've been a tremendous blessing. I hope to be able to do a video with each of them or even all of them together in the future to introduce them and just let you hear their history and hear their experience and the wisdom that they can present as well. But with this one, I just want to talk to you a little bit. Um, as far as the PTSD is concerned, it's one of those a lot of times unseen issues. We're very prideful people. We don't want to ask for help. We don't want to come across as weak or um, or even weak physically or weak minded. And so a lot of those things that we deal with, we just try to bottle up and bury it and we deal with it in our own way. And what happens with that is it leads to other coping mechanisms. And one of those is often substance abuse. I know that there was a time where I really had a struggle with alcohol. It almost cost me my marriage on several occasions. And I am a believer. I am a Christian, and it is something that I'm very outspoken about. Without my wife's help and without the Lord's help, that is something that I never would have been able to overcome. And so that was a coping mechanism that I turned to deal with things that were not pleasant. And so that's a lot of veterans' story when it comes to PTSD, is that they look for outside resources to turn to help cope with internal problems. And really, until we start addressing a lot of those internal problems, and until we start acknowledging the fact that they exist, and then being able to lay aside any sort of pride or embarrassment and seek out the professional help that we need, it's going to continue to be an issue among the veteran community. That's why the statistic is that 22 veterans every day will commit suicide. And I know that we can't save the world. I know that we can't probably save every veteran, but if we can get one that may be on the edge without hope, without anyone to turn to, and just be that shoulder for them to lean on, be that support system to find them the help that they need, then that's exactly what we want to do. And so, with the three branches, the three arms, if you will, of our nonprofit, those focuses, we have three different plans of action that hopefully in the near future will come to fruition. And the first one, dealing with PTSD, is after speaking with the volunteer coordinator at the Chattanooga VA clinic, he said that one of the biggest issues that they have is simply getting veterans to and from the clinic for treatment and setting up that. Now, yeah, we live in an age where we can do the My VA video chat, and we can talk directly to someone from our cell phone. But a lot of the older school veterans, they don't want to do it that way. If they're going to talk to somebody, they want to do it in person. They want to look a man in the eye, and they want to know that who they're talking to actually gives a rip about them. And so, with that also comes the challenge of, if they're displaced veterans, if they're living on the street, if they don't have a home, they very likely don't have a car or any mode of transportation to get there for the treatment that they need, which also leads to a life of substance abuse, a life of drugs, alcohol, whatever you want to call it, because they've lost everything. So why not at least dull the pain with some sort of outside influence? And so that's exactly the cycle that we're seeing among a lot of the veterans that are struggling and not seeking treatment. And so, in order to help with that, what we would like to do is we're already looking for a passenger vehicle, a passenger van that we can start, if you will, like a transportation service free of charge for the veterans. We'll go to them, we'll pick them up, we'll take them to the VA clinic for their treatment, allow them to be seen by their primary care provider there, allow them to be seen by all the other medical professionals, but also a licensed and trained counselor dealing with PTSD. Allow them to get that mental help that they need and be able to learn how to cope with it without having to turn to things that ultimately kill them. And so that is the very first thing that we're looking to do. As a matter of fact, I made a contact with a senior living center in the Chattanooga area, and the director says that they have roughly 20 veterans and that they would love to have the opportunity to have some sort of shuttle service to come by, pick up some of their veterans, take them to the treatment, and then bring them back. And so that's another aspect that we're wanting to do. We're not just wanting to help veterans that are on the streets or veterans that don't have the ability, but also some of the senior veterans that may not have family anymore to be able to take care of them, may be living on a fixed income and don't have the means to get anywhere. Maybe they're too old to be able to drive on their own now, and we want to help them as well. And so that's step number one, is getting a passenger vehicle that we can start that van route, if you will, to be able to transport veterans back and forth to the clinic for treatment. We are located in the North Georgia area, based out of Dalton, Georgia, but also working in the Chattanooga area because it is the closest VA clinic to Dalton. And Dalton is very strategic. We're right off of I-75, which goes up through Chattanooga, but all the way down to Atlanta. And we're on the north end of the state. And so we are very central to the North Georgia, Chattanooga area, which there is a big problem of homelessness and drug abuse in these areas. And, I understand that there's multiple organizations, nationwide organizations. You've got organizations like Mission 22, who is a great organization that's putting a large dent in the veteran suicide community. Um, you've got the Hero Company that helps veterans get service dogs, service animals to help them with PTSD. You've got Till Valhalla, who is helping the veterans as well. All these different great organizations that are doing wonderful things, but here we have a local problem, and I really believe that a local problem requires a local solution. It requires boots on the ground to be able to be at work, to put in the legwork, to put in the labor, and to just let them know that somebody still gives a rip about them, that they're not forgotten, that they've not been left to themselves. And so that's what we're really trying to do. And so, step one, we want to get a passenger van. Step number two is that because of the homeless situation and because of the substance abuse, many times shelters and rehab centers don't have immediate bed availability. And that's a problem. As a matter of fact, it was a little over a month ago, I met a Marine, last name Kelly, on the street. And he was fentanyl sick at the time. And I was just talking to him. He was sharing war stories, talking to me about his time. He lost a buddy, and he just started weeping. He said, I'm just so sick of living this life. I'm so sick of having to turn to this to be able to cope and to be able to dull the pain. And I told him, I said, well, man, I'll help you in any way I can. I said, so I started calling other centers. I started calling rehab centers. And of course, nobody had immediate bed availability. It's not that they don't want to help, it's just that they're at max capacity. And so they pointed me to the crisis unit there in Chattanooga. And they said, they can get them in almost immediately, but they'll only be able to stay there for a few days. But during that time, they can start the paperwork for the state funding, apply for some state grants to help pay for the rehab, and which that got my wheels to turning about some of the VA stuff. There's opportunities that the VA has to help these veterans, but until they get there and start applying for them, then they can't really receive the benefits that they may have coming to them. And so that's another aspect that we want to help get them to the VA for, so that they can apply for some of the benefits, the health care that they have earned, that they fought for. And so the second part, because there's not an immediate bed availability in some of these areas, eventually, when I have a piece of property, when it's it's the right time, and who knows when that will be, but the sooner the better. I want to have several modular homes. We call them CHUs in Iraq, containerized housing units, and they're pretty nice. It's basically a metal container that's insulated and retrofitted to house anywhere from 25 soldiers, depending on the size. And so if we had, 3, 4 of the 20-foot CHUs, containerized housing units, then we could put some of those twin bunk beds in there, and we could temporarily house anywhere from 6 to 8 different guys that are waiting on beds to be able to get into the rehab centers and the shelters. And so that's down the road. That's one of our plans, but we want to get them off the street, get them out of that environment so that they can begin the process of getting the help that they need and healing. And then the third arm, what happens when they're done? Do we just turn them loose and let them go back to where they came from, back to the street, back to those influences? Heaven forbid, we do not want to do that. And so we came up with the idea that if we can start a lawn care service that would help veterans in multiple aspects, the first part would help obviously the veterans that have come through the program, that they're clean. They might have felonies against them, and so it makes finding a regular job very difficult. So we'll hire them and put them to work in the lawn care service, and they'll be paid through our organization. They will not charge the customer for the lawn care service, and the reason for that is because we want to service disabled veterans, um, elderly veterans, and widows of veterans lawn care for free. We don't want to charge them for it. And so we want to send our veterans that have come out successful on the other side, that they're just looking to better themselves and be able to provide for themselves. We want to send them to these other veteran homes to help maintain their yard and their facilities. And so eventually we'll be looking for, a truck and a trailer and all the lawn equipment that goes along with that. I don't care if we start with my truck and a push mower and a weed eater, and one guy that is willing to get out there and sweat a little bit just to go and help some of these veterans and elderly veterans, disabled veterans with their lawn care. We will put them to work. We'll give them a sense of purpose, a sense uh, of of being able to provide for themselves once again, and not have to rely on any other coping mechanism that's out there, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or anything. And so those are really our short term goals for the long term. We want to make those three aspects something that we continue to grow upon, that we continue to build. And who knows how big this thing is or could be. Who knows if it will be? But I really see that there's a great opportunity here for us to at least make an impact in some lives. I said this, I may not be able to change the world, but if I can change the trajectory of one life, then I can lay my head on my pillow at night and I can rest easy knowing that I what I did mattered in the broad scheme of things. And I just don't want to spend my life looking back saying, I sure made a lot of money, or I had a nice house, or I had a lot of good toys, and I had a good time. But what did it count for? And so this is something, Caleb never worried about all that. He was satisfied, he was content just to help others. And so that's the legacy that we want to carry on. That's the legacy that we want him to be remembered for, and that we want to honor. And so I hope that you'll continue to stay in contact with us. I hope that you'll follow along. Listen, I'm not a professional. That's obvious by this very first recording. I'm sitting here in my kitchen with Beats Studio headphones on, recording this over my computer. But eventually, I remember Theo Vaughn, he was talking about how in one of the early days that he had to get in his car and drive out in the middle of nowhere, and he recorded in the dark on his cell phone because he had to get something out. And I thought that, hey, you know what? If he's willing to do that and see where he is today, then we can all start somewhere. And so that's exactly what we're doing. Uh, we'll have several different episodes coming up in the near future talking about all sorts of different things. There's things I'm going to vent about. There's things that I'm going to be very transparent about, and hopefully line up some pretty cool guests for you as well that I think will be very helpful and entertaining at the same time. So stay in touch, follow along, and just help us to continue fighting for those that have fought for us. And go check us out at www.veteransandvictory.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, so you can look us up there. And there's several different ways to get involved. If you would like to get involved, then hit me up. My email address is sunderwood52@gmail.com, and you can find all that contact information on our website as well, www.veteransandvictory.com. Thanks for joining, and have a great day.